Good evening, board members, staff, and community. Welcome to a special called work session today for Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025. Our mission, Buncombe County Schools, is to foster a culture of excellence and continuous improvement where every student will thrive and learn from exceptional educators. Our vision is for every student to graduate on time, prepared to pursue their chosen path as critical thinkers and collaborative leaders in our diverse society. With that, I will call this meeting to order, and I'll ask if we can please just stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Board, our first item of business for our work session is to approve our agenda. May I have a motion to approve our agenda for the evening?
So moved.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, our agenda is approved. Brief opening comments. I really appreciate the board and their time tonight. Coming together for a work session, we have two key items to discuss within our time remaining. One is a budget discussion focused on specifically what topics of interest do we have for our budget discussions, and how many work sessions do we want to have to focus on those topics of interest for the upcoming budget work sessions in the Q1 of 2026 for the upcoming school year next year. We will try to stay focused on that. We have resources here in our staff. Tina Thorpe and Finance Department is here, and our superintendents as well, and superintendent to help with any questions we may have. So secondly, we have done some board development work with the North Carolina School Board Association recommended board self-assessment, where we focus on reflection on ourselves as a board member, and then also reflection on our board and how we function together as a board on behalf of the students of the county. So we will try to dive into that as well. But first, on the budget discussion, if we can start there, as it is first on our agenda. The first question that I have for the board to ponder and discuss really is, last year, for example, we had a request to have some more expansive board discussion from staff, guided discussion around topics that were unique to last year's budget. And we had several budget meetings, right? We had, I think, almost 5 in total, maybe 4. And some of the feedback I got was that the educational material provided to us in those presentations was outstanding, so thank you, staff. We learned a lot about the moving parts of the budget, but that we could have expanded on some dialogue about some of the components within the budget that we may have some special questions about and want to have some maybe special dialogue. So Dr. Jackson asked if this year we could have this initial dialogue, just think through what are the topics of interest that we have around our upcoming budget, some of the primary drivers that are out there, and how many work sessions does it feel, do we feel comfortable to address some of those topics? So I will ask the board if anyone wants to raise their hand first and share any feedback from either last year and how they see this upcoming budget and some of the key concerns or topics of interest would be.
I'll go. First of all, thank you for all of the sessions that were put together for us. That was only my second time hearing it, and every time I hear it, I learned something new. So it's really beneficial to have the education of what goes in the budget, how you come up with the numbers that you come up with. So I can only speak for myself, but I think the education piece was very beneficial and helpful, and hopefully now we would be able to say, because the final approval, they keep telling us in these law conferences, that budget is y'all's budget. So you got to feel really good about what you're signing off on. So for me, it's really taking a look at all departments, all schools. Y'all know this, I advocate a lot for counselors and social workers, having enough teachers, particularly EC teachers. I know there's an allotment, but we've got to meet the needs of all of our students in all of our districts. And therefore, I think having some input on, and I'm just making this up, I'm just totally making this up, but let's just say that the board said, we really want a social worker, full-time social worker in every school, all 45. I know we probably can't afford that, but if we say that to you, then be able to come back to us and say, this is what it's going to cost, and here's how much we're going to have to save somewhere else in order to make that happen. And again, I'm just making up a scenario. And APs are another one that concerns me in terms of particularly elementary, at the elementary level, having APs, because I see principals coming into their office and they got a line of kids waiting on them, but yet they're held accountable for doing teacher observations. So how do they do observations when they have a line of children that needs to see the principal? And therefore, I'm very supportive of, if I won that lottery, we would have an assistant principal in every elementary school. And so I think those are the big ones for me.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens. If I can just kind of capture what you just said, it sounds like one key area is, because we think we have the capital work sessions as well, and then we have the operational budget. So within that operational budget discussion, you're specifically kind of interested in, how are we assessing specific needs within our schools at each, within each department, and how does that play into our overall budgeting strategy? Okay, thank you. Mr. Cheatham.
I'll go next, thank you. I want to say that I just learned so much last year from the sessions. As a new member of the board, I had no idea what went into our school systems budget, even coming from a person who'd been in the system. I do request that whatever we decide to educate ourselves on or discuss, I would like that to go through the same process as we go through the other presentations we get, specifically curriculum, in that we always look at our strategic plan and make sure that whatever we're financing, that it meets a certain part of that plan. And so I know when we have our discussions on Title I or small group instruction or mental health, our administrators always focus what we're doing to meet the goals of that plan. And I think so much work went into that thoughtful document. And it's a good way to keep us on task and focused, to make sure that we're not spending money on things that don't address those goals specifically. So I don't have a specific topic that I want to focus on this year, but I'd like whatever we talk about to go through that same process.
So do you mind if, just to follow up with you? So, if, for example, if out of this discussion, our staff here, hey, there seems to be some key focus around student services and position allotments within student services. What you're requesting is that if we have a budget work session that kind of focuses on that specific area, that it specifically tie back to the strategic plan, for our staff to highlight how our financing within student services ties to our strategic plan. Is that a good way
That's
to-
one example. I just think the scope of our finance, we should always look through that plan. I think deviating away from those goals is a path we don't want to follow. And so that's one great example. So whatever program we're talking about, whatever allotment we're talking about for student services, are we meeting this goal that we set for ourselves and all our stakeholders that took part in those discussions? I think it's another chance for us to honor their ideas and their work. So that was a good example.
Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Yes, Ms. Churchill.
So part of that too is I'm just thinking about, like, when we're deciding, where to focus some ask, is like, for instance, we had public comment recently that was talking about the need to specifically increase our EC assistance, and I think there was that specific ask, if I remember, for adding an additional hour, which I think, maybe one of the things we haven't done is that, I think we can all say that, yeah, that sounds really good, but we need to, again, look at it from a financial lens and have that ask with a dollar amount, and then how does that pair up with our strategic plan? And so almost like, and I know I know the principals kind of do this, but almost like, when we do our capital needs request, maybe from a board and administration operational request for these extra things that we've had to look at cutting back for whatever reason. But, if we're trying to piece back some of that, if we get some Helene funding back or money from the county or something like that, how do we best, put the resources to our strategic plan, like you said, Greg?
Thank you, Ms. Churchill. Any other board members have any thoughts around?
I would just like to say that I really appreciate Ms. Thorpe and the members of her team and the thorough, outstanding job that they do every year in presenting this information. For people like me whose background is not math, it is very, very helpful, and I find it so reassuring and clarifying in my role as a board member. I've been a teacher and principal and all that, but this is in this new role, when people come and ask us questions, we know that if it's not there in the budget line item that we're able to maybe decipher on our own, we can always go to members of her department and seek clarification, and they're so good about making sure that we get that information back to them in a timely manner. So I feel good about the setup that we have now, and any other alterations that department might want to offer in terms of our meeting together to provide further information and the budget presented in that way. I love the 2-on-2. I think that's an opportunity for all of us to ask questions and have things addressed in that way. So thank you so much, all of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. I can go if you want me to. If you want some more time.
I was waiting on Ann to go. What I would like to see more is that we look at the budget and how we can fit the budget by schools. So the schools that need more help than others, see if we can somehow get money to, like Oakley, and get money to our schools that are not performing that well, that need that extra assistance. And because some schools don't need assistance whatsoever. I know each school is budgeted the way it needs to be budgeted, but I think it's somewhere we can figure out where we can get the assistance inside of the schools that need it the most in order to change them scores inside that school. And also operationally, get the schools the help that need. It baffled me last week at Estes and Kuntz and sitting at Valley Springs and seeing you got a school that's sitting on 700 kids, all of them. And we only have William Estes and Kuntz sharing assistant principal. They have assistant principal and a principal. That is not enough staff in that operation because they were just running everywhere. You have the principal over here, assistant principal over there. They're waiting on the part-time principal to come over to kick in, but she's stuck over there at Kuntz. I think we need to come to a rationality inside of our budget. And I tell you, this is what I love about corporate America and love about Home Depot working for them. We have 5 different types of stores. Them stores were designed to build money, build funds the way it need to, but we all knew that they weren't equal as stores inside the schools. So if you look at Fairview, that's a type 5 store, and this is why they have a store manager, they have assistant manager, 2 assistant managers, operation manager, and a specialty manager, and all of them categorized to fit that program for that store. But if you go to another store that's sitting down in Morganton, no, they're not type 5, so they only have 3 managers inside that store because the volume is not there. And I think when you have a school system like TC being stressed, they need that support to make sure, because I don't want to walk into a school and you see the principal just drained, and then you look at them as a board member, can I help you? Can I do something? But I think we need to change on how we're using our budget to make sure that the budget fits that school personally, and making sure that we're giving them every tool they need to be successful in their scores, in taking care of our kids, even counseling our kids. I think the budget needs to reflect that for them, to see if we can come up with something like that.
So we're just you can see in our budget that we're financing that it meets the specific needs that exist within our school system that may be unique to some schools, and every school is going to have its unique needs.
Yeah.
That we can see that in the budget in some way reflected. Okay.
Chairman Elliott, maybe
Yes.
a possible subject could possibly be maybe understanding teacher and staff allotment, and why we have people placed in the schools where we do, and what flexibility we have as far as moving or adding to staff. So understanding the state funds we receive, exactly which local positions we're funding, and how our administration is deciding where they go. I think that would be a pretty useful topic. I think it's something people ask about all the time. Why don't we have another assistant principal? Why don't I have enough assistants? I think if the board understood more about that, we could answer those questions a little more easily.
Yes, thank you. And just to continue with your thread, I think what I've kind of heard this evening's discussion and just in general over the last year is there's a couple things at play that are of interest that may be a little different this coming year. One is that there's been work done on an position allotment model that I may ask. I prepped Tina a little bit to be prepared to comment a little bit about where we are in that process of working through that to date. So we have sort of a position allotment model that we've been working on, and then we have a world of great testing data that we just got from Dr. Reed a couple of board meetings ago that reflect achievement within our school system, and our board obviously is highly focused on the achievement of our students. So kind of what I'm hearing is in the operational budget discussions that we might have in the future, it's how is the staff thinking about balancing that allotment model with the unique needs in our school that help drive achievement across all groups of students in our school system. And there are some things that aren't quite picked up in testing, right? So there are the student services components that, sure, they do impact achievement for sure, but it's you know, that's another component that I think we can try to understand through some of these discussions of the operational budget. So that balancing of allotment with the needs of our schools as seen through the lens of our testing data and through the lens of these specific schools have some specific needs because of their communities. Specific communities have unique needs, and how are we addressing them, I think is kind of what I'm hearing. Does that sound about right? Ms. Thorpe, do you mind if I ask to call on you for just maybe a couple minutes of just, could you just give us a quick update on where the allotment?
Was presented back in September, how far we had gotten at that point to the board, and we have made a lot of progress since then. He's continued to meet with departments and principals, and we will have a full manual. He's getting really close to the end of December. We're hoping to have the manual completed. It outlines what the allotments are, it outlines all the definitions and meanings and terms, and then every school and every department has a sheet that outlines every position that there's over 140 positions that we have, and every one of those will have an outline and an allotment model built for school and department. So those should be available mid to late January, and hopeful to use all of these for the upcoming hiring season for the 26-27 year.
Okay, so mid-January, you think we'll have it, okay, at the full
Yes.
model there. Okay, I'll ask the board, while we have Tina, any other quick questions? Again, I'm not trying to dive too deep and solve any budget issues here, but just to get a sense of where we want the discussion to go later. Yeah, go ahead.
So we partner with the principals based on positions that's needed inside of the school system?
Directors, we have actual principals, we have different teams coming. We've had, like looking at clerical, we've had the superintendents involved and all the others, feedback coming in for what is needed at each school.
And based on what the information we put in, what gives back saying this is what the allotments for this school, will it be able to be adjusted?
Oh, for sure. Because we're building this model to be used, if the ADM goes up, the ADM decreases, the needs go up, depending on what parameters are built into each category. And it will be the model that will help keep us equitable and meet the needs through the lens of the model, plus listening and hearing and figuring out the uniqueness of a particular situation to help drive it.
And will also keep us conscious enough that even though ADM can go up and down, and y'all know the pet peeve for these custodians, the square footage of a building don't change. And if ADM does change in that school, it changes what we need, but I don't want to see us take a operational piece, because, and as I tell people, operations don't give anything. Operations take. They can't offer anything to give to the bottom line. But if the students, if ADM drops and say, because I cleaned up at Reynolds got 2 new buildings. Them buildings weren't there when I was there. And the square footage has grown, but we went down in custodial staff. So are we looking at the square footage on what it takes to maintain that building?
We have like 6 to 8 elements built in the custodial allotment model that talks about the square footage. It talks about what type of capacity you have in there, what type of events you're having, how many events after school. There's a lot of things built into this model that determines what standards of cleaning you want to have at a school. ADM's a very small portion of the custodial allotment.
If I may, excuse me, if I may, Mr. Chair, part of the reason this has been 2 years' worth of work on our allotment manual, so that we could take each of those 140-plus position groups and look for the data that needs to inform the actual decision process, and then transparently put it in front of everybody who's interested in understanding how are you allotting custodians, how are you allotting administrators, how are you allotting counselors. Within the model itself, once approved by the board, so the board will have the opportunity to say, this looks good, or we think you need to put more weight on this particular item in the actual formula for this particular position group. There's also built in the opportunity for a school principal or department chair to say, I know the formula says this, but in our school this year, we have this unique need, and so we would like to have more of whatever the position might be. A committee will be set up that will hear that from the school, will make a recommendation that would then come to the leadership team. The job of the leadership team is then to look at the budgetary impact before bringing that to the Board of Education. And so there is built into the position allotment manual, one, the transparency of how did you make the decision, What are all the elements, including the 6 or 7 that went into the custodial allotment? And then 2, the opportunity for someone to say, this year, we have this unique need that maybe the formula doesn't account for. And based on that, I'd like to ask for additional allotment for my school or my department. And so we've tried to, over the course of the last 2 years, involve all the folks who need to be involved and create a process so that every member of the public, every member of our staff, and every member of our Board of Education understands very clearly how did we decide how many of whatever employee group is placed at each school, so that we can look at things like core values in our strategic plan, and I very much appreciate that conversation, like equity. Are we investing for equity? How does that show up in our formulas across those 140 position groups? So I look forward to being able to roll this out in mid-January and present that to our Board of Education, because a lot of folks have been working very hard to create that, to give the board the opportunity to really see at a deep level. So thank you for the question, and thank you to Ms. Thorpe for leading that work.
Since he said something else that got my attention.
Sure, go for it.
So either one department, so with this program, it's gonna allow us to bring equity across all schools, where each school will have the same programs. So there won't be any fuss that this parent is saying that I want my child to take this because they're interested in this, but your school offers, because we now allow ourselves to bring them programs to all 45 schools.
So one of the things, I love the question, one of the things that the board wrestles with constantly and continually in budgeting, for example, is the concept of equality versus equity. Equality means everybody gets the same thing. Equity means that we meet the needs that might be unique and individual to that building, to that school, to that community. And so the formula builds in those things that might impact. For example, we mentioned administrators. Maybe one of the pieces of the formula, I know it's there, is the number of disciplinary incidents in a school, because that takes administrators out of classrooms. Attendance in the school. And so we're looking at the elements. And so in the allotment manual, the board will have the opportunity to say, there should be a base allotment for every school of these things. Every school needs this. And then beyond that, based on an equity model on these factors, these are the other things. And so we'll have the opportunity to look at a deep level in a way we haven't had the opportunity in the past, because the budget is very thick. And so it's hard to pull out some of the details, and we are very detail-oriented in this work. Thank you for that question.
Thank you very much, Tina, for the quick update on that, and good to know that timing to share a word, since we're a school board and we like to learn. That's a word I learned from reading Moby Dick, which is fungible. The student allotment or the position allotment model is fungible. It can should be shifted to meet the needs of each school as needed. So yes.
I was just gonna say, if we are looking at having this ready in mid-January, is this something that maybe we could come back in February and have a work session where we can kind of go over it again before a board meeting? I know you do some of the presentations, but where we can maybe have a little more informal back and forth on it once it's ready.
Truthfully, like similar to our 202, or I think it'd be very important to do this in a 202 so we can dive deep into it.
Okay.
And explain it and have the opportunity to have your questions in small groups that we can really focus on and outline how it works, and so you can really take the time and dig into it.
That sounds great. Thank you for thinking about it.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. That's a good segue into kind of where the end goal of this whole discussion was meant to take us, which is now that we have hopefully that dialogue was helpful for you, Superintendent Jackson, some general concepts on the table and areas of interest and focus is to think about, as I was asked, how many meetings is the right amount of meetings and kind of when and on what focus. I would say, I think that traditionally, Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, or Dr. Jackson, we typically have one work session dedicated to school capital, or is it combined where we?
It's combined, it's usually, it has to be near the end of April or before May 15th. We have a work session that's like 4 hours long that has operational budget, capital, and the facilities needed has to be, there's like 4 items that have to be presented to you and to the board. And we've been doing that in April 24th last year.
So that's one meeting, and I would presume the board feels good about that one meeting is gonna stay in place, so that's one of the budget session meetings that we have. So pivoting more towards the operational components of our budget process, we've got the timing of this allotment model coming out mid-January. We have all of our data. Can you also, sorry, to put timing around funding? So we are all kind of familiar with local funding. State and federal is another piece, but when do you start to get a glimpse of what that looks like? I know right now it's like we don't know, no budget, but.
Still an unknown world for state, as far as what's happening with the state budget, because we would have been getting a new 2-year biennial budget, and so that usually gives us the next year's information in it, and so we're missing all of that, and I don't know what's coming for 26, 27 with no indication of a state budget.
Tina, can we get you to the mic?
I'm so sorry, yes. So, for the state funding, I don't know yet. We are in limbo that I've never experienced, because the latest state budget I have dealt with was November 18th, and I don't foresee one coming. They're telling us it's not coming. And so there's not any indication of what's gonna come out for state funding. Federal, we've received little bits and pieces that now they're delegating more of it to 4 main departments: the Department of Interior, Department of Labor, and Department of Human and HHS, Human and Health Services, and then to the state. That's going to be able to distribute the federal funds, but there's still cuts in there from both the House and the Senate. So I do have an idea. If either of the state or the House goes through, I'm looking at what those cuts were in both of them. And if it's in both, it's probably coming out. So I've been looking at those numbers. And then local, we've been trying to work on this local funding formula to try to get an idea of what's coming locally. And we usually get projections in March from the local. We do all of our capital meetings. We start at the beginning of March and we wrap them up at the end of March, and that we're still on schedule to do that for the capital side. And they've wanted to align capital with operations, so we should be getting this similar information for local at the end of March.
Okay, thank you. Did that, you good? Okay. That's all I have, questions for you. Thanks, Tina.
Okay.
So we've got the one capital meeting there that we've already talked about. We've got some desire to talk about allotments and, you know, from an educational perspective, how do we allocate those financed resources into our schools? That feels like another work session, at least one. And I'll ask our staff too, if Dr. Jackson, if you feel compelled to speak here, but so we've got, that's 2 work sessions already, a capital and then sort of an operational work session focused on allotments and educational needs at our schools. Is there any other, as far as feedback from the board, or is there another type of budget work session that you would feel would be helpful to plan for?
Thank you very much for having this conversation. I feel good with the 2 that have just been listed, in addition to the work that we do with board members individually in 2x2s, so that board members can have their very specific questions answered as well. And then I think it's a good idea, particularly given the uncertainty around the state and federal budget going into next school year, that we just hold the possibility that we may have to have additional work sessions if something were to change at either the state or the federal level in an unanticipated direction. And so with the board's pleasure, feeling good around planning for those 2 meetings, and then the individual meetings with board members or the 2x2 meetings. And then if we need additional board work sessions at the request of the board or staff, we certainly could do that.
Okay, thank you. So to summarize, we are looking at 2 minimum, work sessions, around this desk with, or another desk in public, with our staff. 1 to focus on the operational needs of the school system, a second one for capital, and then along the way, if we get updates about state or federal funding, we may need to schedule a third. I'll just ask the board, I'm not taking a vote here, but in general, by head nod, does that feel like a good approach to start? Okay, any other requests around budget sessions for the future? Okay. Well, thank you very much, board, for your wisdom, and staff for your time in hearing what our interests are in this upcoming budget. And Tina, thank you very much to you and your team for all that you do and keeping us informed with great numbers that we can count on. So we look forward to that. And from a timing perspective, on the first discussion, sort of the operational piece, Amy brought up, sometime early on, late January, February. Is a February work session, from a timing perspective, work well for you and your staff?
Yes, sir. Actually, it would be important for the staff, because if the board wants to potentially make changes to the funding formula, we would need to know that in terms of setting the position. So sometime early February would be good for the staff as well, for our planning purposes.
Okay. So, yes, Amy?
Could we look at doing that maybe at our February board meeting, like our work session, maybe even if we had to come in a little bit earlier?
Sure, we can work on scheduling, with that as a target, and we'll just get that pinned down between now and, say, Christmas break, the holiday break. Does that work for everyone? Okay, all right. I think we have general consensus around that. So you've got something to plan on there, Superintendent Jackson. We've got some needs out there on the table and some concepts to think about, so thank you very much to everyone for that discussion. We will move on. I'm aware of the time here. Our original board meeting was scheduled until 6:30. We have we'll have multiple school events going on this evening that I know everybody wants to get to, or other important things. So if we can pivot now to our board development discussion. A year ago, we discussed in a work session the importance of working together as a board very effectively, and that can translate into student achievement, because we can communicate clearly amongst each other and with our staff in appropriate ways that enables good things to happen in our school. And so with that, Ms. Plemons highlighted for me that there was a North Carolina School Board Association board survey that has been around for a long time. We opted not to pursue the NCSBA Master Board status because of its cost and sort of timeline, but we did decide to move forward with this stepwise approach of going into a NCSBA survey. And we have some results in front of you this evening. The first part of I'll say thank you just from the start in participating in this, because everyone did. The first part of this survey, unless the board feels compelled to talk about that, the first part of the board was a board member self-survey. So it was reflective back on ourselves as board members, my perspective about my own personal board service. In the essence of time and other, considerations, I would propose that we kind of step into this survey from the board evaluation part 2 that would begin probably on page about 3 or 4. And by all means, if anybody wants to speak up as I go through this, please do. At the end of this, I'll try to get to it rather quickly, but there are some question prompts that we can contemplate as next steps and agree on a path forward on how to proceed from here. But from the board evaluation perspective, Board of Operations and Performance, the question was put to us: the board operates through policies and meeting procedures exhibiting good boardsmanship in areas of confidentiality, preparedness, and conflict management. So we were asked to rate ourselves in that category. I'll say when I looked at this, our board operates in accordance with annual reviews. We provide a climate that allows free and open discussion. We adhere to confidentiality laws, and we use good decision-making processes. Based on those criteria, I think the bulk of us rated our board functionality as a board together as very good or satisfactory. Anybody have any comments on this one component? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to planning and goals. So the next component was the board values, mission, vision, and goals guide deliberations, decisions, and actions in the best interest of student achievement. So we regularly monitor progress towards achieving the district's vision, mission, and goals. We widely publicize and distribute our vision and our mission statements. We develop meeting agenda items and work sessions that are specifically linked to district goals. And we strive to improve board skills by staying abreast of educational issues presented at workshops, et cetera. So on this one, there was some more, diversity of response, generally very good or satisfactory, but there were a few instances of, hey, we need some improvement, specifically around the one comment of developing agenda items and work sessions that are specifically linked to district goals. And we strive to improve board skills by being abreast of educational issues. So as we go through here, you'll see different colors pop up on these graphs, and it kind of shows where there maybe needs some discussion around improvement. So if anyone has any desired commentary to make now, you can, or we can save it for some follow-up discussion later. All right. Hearing none, we can move on. Student achievement. The board sets high instructional standards with a curriculum that is centered on student achievement and aligned with state standards. So our board has a good working knowledge of the board's role regarding curriculum and instruction, review and approval. We use the expertise of our staff in the development of that curriculum, ensuring that it's focused on student achievement. We require systematic evaluations and feedback on the instructional program, and we set high standards for each and every student based on multiple assessment measures. This is another one that had some more diverse feedback. So I just wanted to pause here again and ask Mr. Cheatham.
It seems like almost half of the board felt that we needed to improve in how we evaluate the instructional programs that we're using in our district, or seek feedback from our administrators. It was the third question. I know we benefited so much from last month's evaluation of our student progress from Dr. Reed. I'm one of the members that marked that we needed improvement here. And so I think I'd like to start a discussion about a more frequent review of student programs, and maybe just some clarification on how we're choosing a math program or a literacy program in our schools. So that's a request for our administration.
Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Any other feedback? Dr. Jackson, does that feel, obviously, yes, 3 board members kind of responded. It's an area where we could improve our performance as a board. Not to put you on the spot, but if you're willing, is this an area where perhaps in some upcoming board sessions that we could hear a little bit more about curriculum in our schools, or how our curriculum is being used to achieve, some of our strategic objectives?
Absolutely. Typically, curriculum is approved on a cycle set by the state by subject area, and so certainly more conversation around those decisions, I think, is appropriate. And thank you for referencing the presentation that Dr. Reed recently gave. That was also, in terms of the breadth and the depth of that presentation, was directly benefited from the questions that board members ask. And so hopefully that was a demonstration of hearing from the board and making sure we're responding to those requests. And so we certainly will continue to work on that moving forward. And if there are particular areas that the board has interest in, even though that curriculum area may not be up for adoption, if board members will share that with us, we will make sure that we have those presentations on a regular basis so that the board is both informed and has the opportunity to share with staff the vision of the board moving forward. Thank you. Happy to do that.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Let's see, Reverend Martin, you have a,
So is it possible that we can get health checks? Because I'm looking at, if we know that a program is trending down, that we fix the problem before it gets worse.
Sure.
So I know walking in schools, a lot of teachers told me the math program, it wasn't working, and from their perspective. Is it possible that we can get in and tweak it or do health checks going to that school to see if it's the staff or is it the program, that we do these pre-audit health checks to make sure that we keep the programs healthy? Because sometimes the program is working and sometimes it's just us getting in the way of it.
Absolutely, and of course, this is the first year of implementation for our new math curriculum, so there's always an implementation dip. But, so yes, sir, absolutely. It may be that a good conversation / presentation for the board is how we actually do that health check, and I like that term, and look at how a school is performing, how is the implementation with fidelity of the curriculum in a particular school, what are the needs that are showing up, what are we hearing from our teachers, and so certainly, I'll work with Chairman Elliott around scheduling those presentations, and so if you'll let me know, let Chairman Elliott know those things that are important to you, we'll make sure we get those in front of the board and we schedule those conversations.
yeah, great discussion, thank you. Yeah, I think that was actually the specific question there that had sort of 3 board members.
Chairman Elliott, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Clarifying question?
yes, ma'am,
So
absolutely.
how do you get feedback from teachers regarding, I mean, if that is a concern that a board member's heard, tell me a little bit about how we get feedback so that teachers feel like they can be empowered enough to share honestly how they feel about a new program, or if they need additional training or whatever the case may be.
Right. There's a multiple feedback loops. One of those, most formally, is the North Carolina Teacher Working Condition Survey that comes up every 2 years. This is a survey year, so in March, we'll be surveying all teachers across the state, and so we get that data. We also have an annual survey that goes out to all of our teachers, the Buncombe County survey that we do. In addition, we have school improvement teams with elected members of our teachers where they have the opportunity to bring to the forefront any concerns that they may have related to instruction, to curriculum, directly to their school improvement plan, which is in alignment with our strategic plan. Additionally, one of the encouragements and expectations of our administrators is that they're in classrooms having conversations with teachers. I'm also holding our senior leadership team, including me, to school visitation challenges and goals to make sure we're in schools. And every time I stand with a staff member, I ask, is there anything I can do for you? So we're routinely trying to be very present, asking staff for their feedback informally, formally through surveys, certainly through assessment results, which are also indicative of if the teaching is not in alignment with the assessment, where's the issue there? So we've got that data as well. In terms of assessments, we have both summative, which is the end of the year, and formative, which is throughout the year. And so that might look like M-class data, which is a literacy assessment that we have in our elementary schools, or it may look like the tests and assessments that we use in our high school courses. And so we try to use all of those feedback opportunities. And then if a board member hears a concern directly from a teacher, I would certainly encourage the board member to ask the teacher, have you talked to your principal about this concern? And hopefully the answer is yes, and here's what we're doing about it. And if it's no, we certainly want to encourage them to talk to their principal, to bring things forward to their school improvement team, or to reach out directly to our central services team as well. And so we try to do that through all of those avenues, create as many avenues as possible for teachers to share their feedback.
Dr. Jackson, am I correct that there's also a district math and literacy team where school-based representatives meet with other leaders in a certain discipline at the county level, and that's a way they could give feedback from their school?
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Thank you for lifting that up. And then, of course, we have our instructional coaches who also work directly with our teachers in non-evaluative ways, and they come together as well to share the challenges they're seeing in the schools they serve and to get best practices from each other. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jackson and board there. Moving on to number 4 is policy. Board focuses on development, review, and revision of policy that supports the district vision, goals, and to drive decision-making. That we understand the importance of board policy, and they reflect current regulatory and statutory requirements. We seem to be very good or satisfactory status there. Develops policies that give district administration sufficient authority and latitude to manage the day-to-day operations. Seem to be in good shape there. Uses written policies as framework for our decision-making progress. Good marks on that one. And then ensures that district policies are readily available to all stakeholders through multiple means. We had a couple there that were satisfactory and a couple that said we needed that could be an area for improvement. Curious if any board members have any thoughts to share on the concept of ensuring that policies are readily available to all stakeholders through multiple means.
That wasn't me though, but.
It's okay.
But attending the School Board Association in Greensboro this past week, I took the AI class because I really wanted to understand how the school system is looking and how they're going to use it. And the lady challenged us to see how our policies are they reachable for people to get to it, or are they not reachable? So I took it upon myself. She said, go home and do this. We couldn't do it there. I went home and I looked up our transfer policy. And when I told AI to look up a transfer policy in Buncombe County Schools, it told me that our policy is not the strongest. So it took Watauga, it took Johnson County, it took, it was 4 other counties that it took, Johnson, Watauga, it told me Haywood, Onslow. Onslow had the strongest athletic policy. And it said our weakness is that we have it scattered. It's in 4 different forms. So if a person is looking for it and searching, they see this policy, but then they gotta go to another policy, then they gotta go to another policy. And they said that weakens the strength of what we are as a county. They said it should be in one location. So when parents are looking for something, it gives them precise information in one location and puts it all together. So I would say for this, as us as a board, and I can send this to you, and that thing was 48 pages when it got done. I said, I don't like AI. That's too much work.
Yeah.
But it showed us that we are not strong. It told me, it said Guilford was number 1, Buncombe County number 3, Johnson number 2, and Watauga was number 4. And they said, and to fix this policy in all 4 school systems, we have to change on where we put information at. And it was very enlightening. She said, just take a policy and just put it in there and tell it to search it. So I would say in this part, if whoever did say this, I think we do need to make sure our policies are easy to access by our parents when it comes down of speaking against stuff and saying this is what we say and this is how it should be done. And then it'll make it better for that teacher or principal or athletic director to say, no, this is our policy, here it is, go to this location here. I don't want them to pull up 4120, 4130, and then 5540, and then go to 5860 to get a final conclusion of what that policy is trying to say.
Thank you for that. I know that we are likely doing some work already on our policy library. There is an NCSBA hosted server, basically, where I don't know if it's the majority or not, but a lot of the larger school systems, the ones you just mentioned, I know are, because I've seen it and I've interacted with it. they're hosted in a way that's more searchable by terms. So I know that that work is generally speaking underway as well. And Greg, I guess I would, this could be, as your chairman of the policy committee, you could consider this concept of readily available to all stakeholders through multiple means, and what that means and maybe how to think through that. So, all right, thank you. Moving on to finance, another area of diverse feedback. The board provides financial oversight for the district and utilizes approved funding to maintain a high-quality education program. We understand the basic principles of school finance, including local, state, and federal sources. Pretty good marks there. Adopts a process and timeline for preparation. This is one reason why I had the discussion before this one today, because 3 out of 4 of us said that we could improve that process. And then ensures that the budget reflects the district's goals and priorities. Again, some diversity in response, and then monitors the financial status of the school district. So yeah, any board comments around this item? Okay, hearing none, we can move forward. I think I definitely took a lot from this and the comments that were left. And I think that we just addressed actually in our prior discussion some of the other feedback from this around how to proceed this year in our budget sessions. So last final 2 here are the board superintendent relationship. The board respects the differences in roles and responsibilities, as well as maintains good communication and interaction between themselves and the superintendent. So we respect the management responsibilities of the superintendent and observes the chain of command. Maintain regular dialogue with superintendent on progress towards district goals, achievement, and feedback on performance. We refrain from public criticism of the superintendent and district staff, and we conduct a comprehensive and fair annual evaluation of the superintendent. Generally speaking, very good, satisfactory. A couple of opportunities for improvement there, particularly around the comprehensive and fair annual evaluation process. Any feedback from the board to discuss here? Okay. On to the last one. Board and community. The board effectively represents and communicates with the public and involves the community in district planning. The board acts as representatives for each and every student in the school, encourages community involvement in the district, acknowledges community issues and trends affecting our district, and builds partnerships with parents, businesses, government leaders, and community members. Generally speaking, we kind of ranked ourselves across the board the same, basically very good, satisfactory, and a needs improvement on each one of those key pieces. I think they're, with all of these, there's always room for improvement, right? Any other board discussion, feedback on this one, board and community component? Okay. I think there are some good comments there. Yes, ma'am, please. Yes.
I'm just announcing some of the comments. So, I do think, and I've heard this, I know this wasn't my feedback, but I've heard this, that our advisory council meetings are good, but there's not enough time to ask questions and share feedback. I do think that, and it's not, that's the county advisory council. We've done some breakouts in those, the big group sessions, but I did hear from some folks that they didn't feel like that we had, that they had the opportunity to ask the questions that they did, at the end of the session or whatever.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. Noted. Well, board, moving on the essence of time, I want to just continue with this discussion on to next steps. So the NCSBA suggests a few things after we do this initial survey. One is that we continue with some self-evaluation discussion prompts. They're listed on the last page there. You can see the questions. There's 3 of them. Based on the results of our evaluation, what are the strengths of our board? Number 2, based on the evaluation, what are the areas of improvement for our board? And 3, recognizing our highest priority is to improve student achievement, what are the major challenges facing our district I'd like to propose that I send these back out. I think we're getting a little bit better at some of this like virtual feedback, just in the respect everyone's time. Are y'all okay if I just send these out as kind of discussion prompts that you can fill out on your own time, submit back, and then we can, at a next work session, just go over these things so our staff can hear? Beyond that, it goes into, setting some goals, and you can see that at the end. And I think it's, we can just sort of take it easy and take a step at a time carefully, and I hope, Dr. Jackson, this is an insightful process for you as well, and your staff to hear this. Lastly, I would like to ask the board, one thing the NCSBA does recommend, if we are willing as a board, is to actually allow our superintendents, our director level staff, and our principals, if we're daring, to actually take this board survey anonymously and have us view their feedback just as we just did amongst ourselves about our own board. So would you be comfortable having the superintendent distribute the board service part of this to that level of staff? Okay, got head nods in general.
What was the level of staff again?
Superintendents, directors, principals.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Mr. Chair, if I might, with the board's approval, at the time that we send this survey out to our principals, our directors, and certainly our leadership team, I'd also like to take advantage of that opportunity to survey our principals. Again, it's an anonymous survey about the support that our schools receive from central services at the department level. That will help us as a staff hear from our principals about where are the areas of strength and where are opportunities for improvement. And so it's always nice if you're going to do one survey, we go ahead and ask the questions we'd like to ask. And so if you're okay with it, in addition to the questions that they may respond to about the board, I'd like to ask that they also respond to questions about the support they receive from central services.
I think that's a great idea, Dr. Jackson.
Everybody generally okay with Dr. Jackson proceeding with that? Okay. Thank you very much. With that, again, I want to say thanks to everybody for being a little daring there on getting this feedback from the community. I think in all aspects, we're here to work together on behalf of our community. I think it's always a good thing to receive honest and constructive feedback, and for us to, if we need to pivot a little bit here or there, that we be good community leaders and representatives and be willing to have those discussions and pivot where we need to serve our students and our staff. So I just appreciate your time on this survey and on future discussions in this area. So with that, I am done. I don't know, Superintendent, do you have anything else?
Thank you, board members. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, thank you, board. With that, I'll make a motion, or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Go Rockets. Yeah. The Final Four. All right.
If I may, the Rockets are playing in the Final Four, but so are the Jets.
So are the Jets.
Go Rockets.
Yes, and the Jets.
Go Jets.
Yes. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.